I just want to know if it's still there, she murmured, gripping a faded blue debit card, like it was the last thing holding her together. The man beside her scoffed until the screen lit up and his whole world tilted. If this story moves you, drop a like and tell me what you'd have done in her shoes. Maya Thompson had learned, a long time ago, how to survive on very little. A cracked phone screen she couldn't afford to fix. A backpack with a broken zipper she'd looped a shoelace through instead. A gray cardigan patched at both elbows because a new one simply wasn't in the budget. Not this month, not the month before, maybe not for a long while still. She stood in the marble lobby of First Meridian Bank, beneath chandeliers that threw soft gold light onto floors so polished she could almost see her own tired reflection in them. This was a place where money didn't just exist, it performed. Men in tailored coats walked through like they'd never once had to count coins for bus fare. Security guards stood near the doors, polite and unreadable, the kind of men who never looked twice at anyone dressed like her. Because people dressed like her rarely had anything worth watching. Her braids were pulled back in a rush that morning. Her sneakers had gone soft at the soles from years of walking instead of driving. But her eyes, tired as they were, older than her 26 years, should have allowed, still carried something unbroken underneath all that exhaustion. She wasn't there for a loan. She wasn't there to dispute a fee or beg for an extension. She just wanted to check her balance before her shift at the laundromat started, because her phone had been dead for 3 weeks, and the banking app wasn't going to open itself. Behind her, a line of people in expensive coats sighed with impatience, shifting their weight, checking watches that cost more than her rent. In front of her stood a man who looked like he had never once waited for anything in his life. Charles Whitfield. Real estate money. Old money. The kind of navy suit that draped instead of hung. A watch on his wrist. That alone could have covered 6 months of her rent without him noticing it was gone. He didn't know her name. He didn't need to. People like her rarely registered as more than background noise to people like him. Next, the teller called, and Maya stepped forward, her heart already thudding against her ribs. "Ma'am, I'd just like to check my balance, please," she said, keeping her voice as steady as she could manage. Before the teller could respond, Charles let out a short, amused laugh from just behind her shoulder. "You waited in this whole line for that? You don't have the app?" Maya kept her chin level. "My phone's been broken a few weeks now. Couldn't fit a new one into the budget just yet." "Well," he said, smirking toward the small audience gathering near them, "checking is free, at least." Small mercies. A few quiet chuckles rippled through the line behind her. Maya felt her cheeks burn, but she didn't let it show on her face. She'd had worse said to her by better people. She slid her card into the reader, typed her PIN carefully, and waited, praying silently that the machine wouldn't spit back a decline the way it sometimes did. The screen loaded, and everything stopped. Charles's smirk didn't fade so much as it collapsed. All at once, like something structural had given way behind his eyes. He stared at the number glowing on the monitor, and for one long second, he forgot how to breathe. $684,213.07. A murmur rolled down the line like a wave. Maya blinked at the screen, certain it would rearrange itself into numbers that actually made sense into the $60, maybe $70 she'd been bracing herself for. That can't be right," she said, her voice cracking slightly. "I work at a laundromat. I pick up extra shifts wherever I can find them. I have never in my life had more than a few $100s sitting in an account." The teller, just as stunned, tapped quickly through the screen. "Miss Thompson, this is definitely your account, and the routing checks out. There's a large deposit that came in 9 days ago from an estate transfer." "An estate," Maya repeated slowly, like the word belonged to someone else's life. "Whose estate?" The teller's expression softened into something careful. "It looks like your father's." Robert Thompson. Maya's knees nearly buckled. She gripped the edge of the counter to steady herself. "My father left when I was 8 years old. I haven't seen him, heard from him, nothing in 18 years. I don't even know if he's—" "I'm so sorry," the teller said gently. "According to the paperwork here, he passed away about 6 weeks ago. It looks like his attorney had been trying to reach you for some time." Charles, still frozen beside her, finally found his voice, and it came out different than it had 10 minutes earlier, lower, careful. "Are you all right? Do you need to sit down? I can get you a chair." Maya turned and looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time that morning, the arrogance was gone entirely from his face. What replaced it looked almost like shame, sitting uncomfortably on features that clearly weren't used to wearing it. "I don't know what I'm feeling right now," she admitted, wiping at a tear that had escaped without her permission. "I shouldn't have laughed at you earlier," Charles said quietly, meaning it. "That was cruel, and it was wrong of me. I'm sorry, genuinely." Maya only nodded, still too overwhelmed to form a full sentence. The teller, careful to shield the moment from the small crowd of onlookers now pretending not to stare, slid a folded slip of paper across the counter, along with a business card. "There's something else you should know," she said. "Your father left a sealed letter with his attorney's office. He asked that you come by whenever you feel ready. There's no rush." Maya stared down at the paper in her trembling hands. A letter from a man who had been little more than a ghost for 18 years, a name she'd stopped saying out loud sometime around her 13th birthday, when she'd finally accepted he wasn't coming back. "Do you have someone who could go with you?" Charles asked, his tone completely different now. All the earlier mockery burned out of it. "My little sister's still in school," Maya said. "It's mostly just been the two of us for a long time. I don't really have anyone else to call on short notice." Charles hesitated, visibly arguing with himself for a moment. Then, "Would it be all right if I came with you? I know we're strangers, and I know I gave you every reason not to trust me 20 minutes ago. But nobody should have to walk into news like this completely alone." For a moment, Maya almost said no. Old instincts told her not to trust the man in the expensive suit. Don't trust anyone who laughs at you first and only apologizes once the numbers changed. But something in his voice had genuinely shifted. The mockery was gone. What remained sounded real, even if she couldn't fully explain why she believed it. "Okay," she said finally, folding the letter against her chest. "You can come." They walked out of the bank together, an unlikely pair, the developer in his tailored coat and the laundromat worker in her patched cardigan, Charles keeping a respectful half-step behind her the entire walk, as if giving her room to change her mind. The attorney's office sat 2 blocks away, quiet and wood-paneled, smelling faintly of old paper and furniture polish. A gray-haired man named Mr. Alvarez greeted them warmly and led Maya to a small sitting room, handing her a sealed envelope with her name written across the front in handwriting she barely remembered, but somehow instantly recognized. Her hands shook as she broke the seal. "My dear Maya, I know I don't have any real right to call you that anymore. I know I wasn't there, not for your first day of school, not for your graduation, not for a single one of the nights you needed someone, and I wasn't home to answer. For years I told myself I'd come back once I had something worth bringing you. That excuse became a year. The year became a decade. And somewhere along the way, it became too late to undo any of it. I spent the last several years of my life building something I hoped might mean more than an apology ever could on its own. It won't undo the years you spent without a father. It won't erase the nights you went without, or the responsibilities that landed on shoulders far too young to be carrying them. But it's yours now, every bit of it, for you and for your sister, and for the kind of life I should have helped you build from the very beginning. Use it for school, if that's what you want. Use it for a home that finally feels stable. Use it to rest, even if just for a while you've spent your whole life being strong for everyone else around you. And it's all right to let something finally make that a little easier. I am sorrier than any of these words can hold, Maya. I hope, somewhere down the line, you can forgive the man who wasn't brave enough to come back sooner. Your father, Robert." Maya pressed the letter to her chest, and the tears came freely now, soaking slowly into paper that had waited 18 years to reach her. Charles stepped back toward the window without being asked, giving her the space to feel all of it without an audience. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "I stopped being angry at him a long time ago. I just never thought I'd actually get to hear from him again." Outside, Charles walked Maya toward the bus stop, unhurried, quiet, in a way that felt respectful rather than awkward between two people who'd known each other less than an hour. "So what happens now?" he asked eventually, hands in his coat pockets. Maya let out a breath, the first full one she felt like she'd taken in years. "I'm getting my sister and me into a real apartment, somewhere with heat that actually works in the winter. I'm going back to school finally. And someday," she said, a smile finding her face for the first time all day, "I want to open a little bakery. Something small. Something that's actually mine." "You'll do it," Charles said. And it didn't sound like flattery. It sounded like he meant it. Maya studied him for a second, curious despite herself. "Why'd you change your mind about me? You were laughing at me 20 minutes ago." He thought about the question longer than she expected before answering. "Because I watched you stand in that line hoping for a number that might just barely get you through the week. And then I watched that number turn out to be more than I make in some years. And it hit me. I've spent most of my life assuming people who look put together have it figured out. And people who don't simply haven't tried hard enough. Today reminded me how wrong that assumption really is. Life can flip in a single second, for absolutely any of us, and none of it has much to do with who deserves what." Maya smiled, a real one this time, as the bus pulled up to the curb. She stepped onto the first stair, then turned back one last time, the folded letter still clutched in her free hand. "I hope something changes for you too, Charles. For the better." He nodded slowly, something unreadable crossing his face. "I think it already did." The doors closed, the bus pulled away, and Charles stood on the curb long after it had disappeared around the corner, understanding that he'd just witnessed something rare. A woman who had almost nothing that morning, discovering she had an entire future waiting on her, and a man who had everything, discovering, for the first time in longer than he could admit, what he'd actually been missing the whole time. Two strangers. One ordinary Tuesday morning. A story neither of them would ever quite forget. Because sometimes, the person you're quickest to underestimate is the one carrying the deepest story of all.